What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully, you're having a very blessed, wonderful day. Today's video topic is going to be about one of the most talked about things related to Suicide Squad, and it's something that's managed to split the very community that we all, sit in, is split right down the middle on exactly what they all want to happen. That very thing is if whether or not the League should die in a game that's called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And I got my buddy Sway back for another video as well. We're not doing cameras today. We're doing this one, off camera, but I probably will throw our profile pictures up there. Sway, say what's up to the people.
What's up, man? How's everybody doing? It's great to be back, and I can't wait to get back into this conversation.
All right, so to kick this off, right? Ever since I would say like the first trailer, the discussion has been, can they actually kill the Justice League, right? Because a good I would say is like maybe 60-40 in terms of people that think the League is going to survive, or most of them are going to survive. But in my honest opinion, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna let Sway go first, right? I'm gonna let him go first before I say what it is I want to say. Go ahead, Sway.
Okay, so I think that there's a few reasons why I think that they would actually kill the Justice League. One is so obviously I do threads on Twitter, and I remember the Gotham Knights run, and I was called a madman by some people because based on the wording of the developers themselves, they said, and this is like spoilers for Gotham Knights in case you guys haven't played it, so skip ahead. I'm giving you times 1, 2, 3. All right, so the developer said that Batman dies within the first 15 minutes of the game and remains dead at the end of the game. And I suggested that Batman will die, he will get brought back, and then he will die again. And that is what happened. So when you take into accountability that DC has already showed you they're not scared to kill one of their biggest superheroes. They did it twice in one game.
They've been doing that for years. Since the 70s. They've been doing that since the 70s.
Since the 70s. In the comic books, they've done it in animation, they've done it in movies.
Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. Y'all know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Y'all know that y'all know what I'm talking about.
This is not Marvel. They are not scared to kill off their heroes. And the thing is that the game is also called Suicide Squad Kills Justice League. Now, my only debate with that title is that I don't think that the Suicide Squad will solely kill them. I think that Wonder Woman is going to help them, and they're probably going to get the killing shots off, but they're going to have help. There's no way that they're not. That's the only thing that I debate. But killing them, whether it's undone in the end or not, I do think at some point that they will die. And I also think that just coming from the development studio, just like Sefton Hill talked about Arkham Knight, he wanted to be done. He said this is the de facto last Batman game we're making. They wanted to move on to something different. They wanted to do something different. And because of the large amounts of demand, I believe that tempted the higher ups at Warner Brothers, the old guard, because David Zaslav had nothing to do with this decision. But he's doubling down on the mandate, so it really doesn't matter. But the higher ups at the time, I believe, panicked and was like, we have the successful franchise that's in the successful canon. If you don't want to do a Batman game, then at least make another game in this canon. So I believe that they probably met in the middle, because we know that this was the game that they always wanted to make. This was a game that Rocksteady themselves wanted to make. My only caveat is I truly, based off of past interviews, don't believe they wanted it to be in the Arkham world. So to me, unless there's something different, I think that because DLC is endless, right? There's always possibilities. There's always different heroes, different villains that you can implement in DLC to continue the cycle post-launch. But killing off the Justice League would basically guarantee that they could move on to a different canon because and let the Arkhamverse rest after this game. Because there's no way you're gonna make another Major League game in this universe and not have all the other characters. If they made a Justice League game, I'm pretty sure they want the Legion of Doom in there. And if you want Legion of Doom in there, you're gonna want the Joker in there. And you can't have the Joker in the Arkhamverse because you killed them. So there is a lot of things for me just off of what developers have said, what we're seeing, DC's history with killing heroes. I truly want them to kill them so that way that, you know, the Arkham, because stories are meant to have an ending. We must remember that. But I hope that they kill them so this beautiful verse can have a proper ending, and so they can, you know, be unchained again with like no parameters and no, this person is dead so we can't do that, or this has happened in the world so we can't do that. You know, just have a fresh start. But that's where I am with it. I truly do hope that they're killed off.
Now, see, here's my whole thing, right? Now, my whole thing is, y'all gotta forgive me because I'm going off the cut, and y'all like my viewers, y'all know I'm a little bit dumb. I'm not as quick with it this way. Some of the main reasons for why people necessarily don't want the league to be killed off, right? One of the big reasons is that this is the first time that we've seen Superman and Flash on screen, and well, Superman, Flash, and Green Lantern on screen in a game that's not a fighting game. People have been waiting to see these characters for how long? Like a decade or two, Sway? Like, do you know?
Waiting for what? These characters?
Yeah, like waiting to see these characters in an actual game is not a fighting game.
Yes. These are something that people has been waiting for a while.
And yeah, no, it's like, no, I have too. Don't get me wrong. I completely understand that. But it's like my whole thing is this. People, they make a fair argument in terms of not wanting the league to be killed. That's completely understandable. My issue comes in where it's some of the people who's more so treating it as if the league dies, this universe dies with it. Because what was all of that world building back in Nightfort? Martian Manhunter, Birds of Prey, who else? Like, what are some other people that I'm forgetting? Aquaman, Green Arrow, Luthor is here. He's in this game. The extended Bat family that's now running around in Gotham. The universe does not start and stop with these specific characters. Now, I'm seeing the argument that's made for them, right? And it's great. I'm gonna bring up Spider-Man 2, for example, because Suicide Squad is in the same situation. Spoilers, like spoiler alert if you haven't played it. In Spider-Man 2, a total of 6 main villains are dead. Right? A total of 6 main villains are dead. 2 if you take away 2 if you count the fact that someone found it in a room in a game that they found it in a room that we couldn't access without glitching through some of the walls. But if Insomniac decides to continue that narrative, 6 villains are dead. Right? 6 marquee villains for Spider-Man's lore. And no one had an issue with any of those characters being dead. Just to recap, it's Rhino, Scorpion, Electro, Vulture, Kraven, and Shocker. The only issue that people had is that all of those deaths, with the exception of Kraven and Scorpion, happened off screen. I feel like the reason for why that was done is because, yeah, these villains are dead, but the universe, Spider-Man's universe outside of those other characters, is big enough as to where you can still make a good story and include other characters, maybe even some other lesser known characters, and still move forward with this. With the league, if they die, the universe doesn't end with them, because again, what was all that world building back in Nightfort, right? We can continue forward with this universe if they choose to do so and get more stories. Or if they're not planning on continuing the Arkhamverse after this, then boom, they can just shut it down. Now, if they decide to get into, I don't know, time travel, or God, I hope not. If they decide to get into time travel or multiverse shenanigans, which has definitely become a staple with anything superhero related in the past couple of years, that's a completely different story. But this universe does not end with them, right? Because I've seen, like, in specifically, like, in terms of Batman speaking, I've seen people say that they think it would be kind of shitty if Batman dies, because it would be weird putting a bullet in his character right after we just lost Kevin Conroy. This is something I feel like that has to be stated. There was no way of knowing Kevin Conroy was going to pass before we got our hands on this game. I feel like that's a mute point to make. We had no idea the man was going to pass.
None.
Now, whenever the Suicide Squad is involved, yes, important characters, non-important characters, they usually die. The whole point of it is, if the squad is involved, at that point, everybody is fair game. Literally, Daniel West, the Reverse Flash, in his first outing with the squad, he died. Now, I'm personally 50-50 on the whole aspect. If the league survives, right? If the squad actually manages to find a way to save them, perfect. That's great, right? These characters get to stick around. We might get to see a couple of stories going forward. If not, cool. That's all right. That's great. But if they die, that would also be just mighty fine with me if it's done in a decent way, because I'm going into this game looking at this as if it's Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. And again, I mentioned it earlier, if y'all seen that movie, you gotta remember, like 90% of that universe all caught a bullet or worse. They won in the end, but at what cost? That's how I'm looking at Suicide Squad. If we do, like, there's a possibility we could win, but at what cost? Now, we have a Wonder Woman game coming out from Monolith, right? Killing Wonder Woman in this game, personally, in my opinion, has no effect on that. If she lives, or if she could live, she could die. It is what it is. She still has a whole nother game coming out. If people want
separate canon,
separate canon. That's another the point I'm about to get into. Superman and Flash. What's to say Rocksteady doesn't decide to just completely start a timeline reset? They pull a Mortal Kombat 1. They pull a timeline reset, and we get these characters back, but in a different form, in a different medium. Sway?
I agree. I think that with the timeline, were you asking? Oh yeah, no. Were you asking me? Oh no. I think with the timeline rewind, you would still have it in the Arkhamverse, but then people would have to ask themselves, right? Like, let's say we had a timeline rewind and everything was undone. Do you really want to live in a world where nothing that happened in the Arkhamverse happened? Because now, even though it was canon at one point, it's basically retconned to not be canon in order to set up a new universe. I don't think we want that. And I don't think that a lot of people think about it that way either. Now, if he just, say if the Flash goes back and reset the timeline as far as, like, right before Brainiac took over, okay, that's one thing. If he goes all the way back and undoes it before any of the Batman stuff from those games, just so they can bring back the characters that they killed off and undo some of the decisions that they made, I think that would also be something that's very, very, very worse for wear. I think that allowing this world to have an ending is the best way to maintain it. Things that, people, we don't mention prestige as much these days. And for something to stay prestigious, you have to care about it, and you have to consistently make sure that whenever you do something pertaining to said prestige thing, that it is handled with care and quality. And just judging off of the things that we've seen in the trailers, this is a product that the team has handled with care and quality. However you feel about the gameplay, that's always going to be case by case. The story does look like they cared about this story. And that's something that Rocksteady has always done. So I think that it would just make more sense. And I know we as humans have a knack for just when we get something good, we want more. And then we want more of that more. And we want more of that, more of that, more. But eventually we got to sit there and go, but all good things must come to an end. Because if you don't, look at fighters. I don't know how many of you are fight fans in here, but oftentimes a lot of the greats fight past their prime. And most people end up remembering what they seen of them last versus remembering the historical career that they had. And that's the same thing that we're seeing right now with, say, the MCU. A lot of people can't remember all those great times that we had, all those great movies that we've had, because it's been lacking in quality now. And I do believe that there are certain things that don't necessarily need a end. I believe that there are certain products that can be ongoing. I think that the MCU had potential to do that, but I believe that they're in a state right now where it's not advisable for them to do that. The only two franchises that I've ever thought is 100% okay to be ongoing with one set canon that continues on and on and on without an ending is Star Wars and Harry Potter. Other than those two, it's very hard to find one, and I would even say Star Trek. It's very hard to find one that would go on and on and on. Comic books, if anybody is actual readers, which I know a lot of your audience is, so y'all know what I'm saying here. Comic books have always been rebooted at a certain point. And a lot of casuals don't know that. They think, I have seen it with myself. I have seen it at just in general.
DC,
there are people who legitimately...
DC specifically reboots every couple years. They specifically pop a reboot every few years.
And that's always been consistent. You have people who legitimately think that everything that happens in comics is one canon. It is not. And so when you think about that, we have to remember that even though this is a video game, it is a video game made off of a comic book character that was made in the comic book industry. And what is something that happens in the comic book industry? Reboots consistently. And they do that so that way they don't tarnish a specific line. And reboots normally happens when a writer takes over for the next wave of what they want to do in the new reboot for the whole universe. So taking all of that into context, us comic book readers, we can look at the Arkhamverse and go, I would be okay if they made it a happy ending here, because that has been the natural way of life, reading comics our entire life. Those who pay attention to who's writing it, when they're rebooting it, consistently reading it, that would never be any new concept to you. But to the casuals out there, that's what this comment is more so aimed towards, to get you incremented into this philosophy that the comic book industry has had. Letting the Arkhamverse go is something that, yeah, it might be hard because we all have fond memories of it. We all have attachments of it. But you got to think about the restraints that the decisions in that line puts on the team. Because the thing that people forget is that Arkhamverse set up not only stuff that just happened in Gotham, but if you paid attention to the side stuff or the Easter eggs that wasn't necessarily called out to you, the stuff written on the walls, some of the notes left on the floors, all of that stuff were world building things, decisions that were made that they would also be shackled to, because people at any point in time would be able to go back and see, oh, well, this happened and that happened. Like I remember in Arkham City when people found the pregnancy test for Harley and it was positive, and everybody was like going in the night like, well, Harley was pregnant, so there's this, that, and the third. We get tonight, we never heard about a kid. A kid was never mentioned. It was never in anything talked about whatsoever. So you hear things like that and you see things like that, and I wouldn't be surprised if like that's something that they pull out their back pocket for this game, and Harley just randomly drops, "Oh, I have a kid. I haven't seen her or him in quite some time. Don't even know where they are because Child Protective Services took them away from me." You can easily hear that. But that is a decision that was something so slight that if they started if they kept this going, yeah, they can pay that off. But then there's things that you tease with Lex Luthor and all of this other stuff that you would also have to pay off that extends beyond Gotham at that point. There was Easter eggs for multiple superheroes throughout the Arkham franchise, and they're all decisions that if they kept going, they couldn't pivot and turn a different direction unless they wanted some more continuity flaws, which I don't think you want to do, because once again, speaking of quality and prestige, that would take away from the quality, and when it takes away from the quality, it takes away from the prestige. If we want the Arkhamverse to remain as prestigious as it is in most of our mind, we have to be willing to accept that it needs an end.
Now, my whole thing in terms of, again, the statements. Now, killing the League would not be disrespectful to the Arkham trilogy that Rocksteady has created. And the reason why that's one of the statements I don't like is because whenever I see that, I never can find out exactly why it's disrespectful. I always just hear it would be completely disrespectful. In what sense? This is not, look, we all love Batman, but this is not his, this is, yes, the universe started with him, but his story is done. His run is done. This isn't his game. Is he a main character here? Yes. He's not the main character. He's not even a main protagonist. He's, what's the one I'm looking for? Antagonist? He's what? No, not even a main. He's technically a supporting / main antagonist underneath Brainiac, and it's not disrespectful to Batman. I mean, no, it's not disrespectful to Kevin Conroy either, because it's like, again, you guys gotta think about this stuff. Kevin signed on to this project knowing the script beforehand, knowing how this game all ends beforehand, meaning that yes, everyone is saying, "Oh, this is disrespectful." This that. That means if he okayed to do the game, that means he fucking signed off on Batman possibly dying. If that's the case, he didn't feel that it was disrespectful. So why should we feel that it's disrespectful? Because at this point, something that the community definitely has trouble with is putting words in a dead man's mouth, which is not okay. It is definitely not okay. If the universe wants to continue, it can. But as Sway said, everything cannot go on forever. Having the League die here doesn't mean we can't get another game from them. These characters have shown up, yes, and again, Spider-Man 2. The last time I think we seen Kraven in a video game was The Amazing Spider-Man 2. He showed up for the first time in Marvel Spider-Man 2, died at the end of Act 2. No one had an issue with that. And Kraven's a very important character. Kraven has one of the most important storylines in Spider-Man's career. I understand that these characters are important, but the narrative that, again, they can't die because they just showed up, that means nothing, especially when you add in comic book logic. That means nothing. Sway.
Nothing at all. And I think that once again, it just comes from I honestly, and this is my opinion of the situation and what I have come to know. I know that King Greek knows this about me, and I know that certain audiences knows this about me, but when I was literally, after I was literally born, most parents will read their child, like bedtime stories, different things like that. I was read comic books. So I literally came out the womb just being read on comic books. It has been a staple pretty much my entire life. And when I see comments like those, and this is not meant to offend any person that may be out there. You know what I mean? But it always, the case is normally when I press further to get a gauge of where their knowledge is, eventually I find out that they're more of a casual versus a comic reader. And there's nothing wrong with being a casual. And that is kind of my thing with even gatekeeping. I believe that you should never bar anybody from coming in and becoming a fan. However, maintaining quality is a must. So people can come in, but they should never be allowed to change a product so it suits them. And so when I see comments like that, that is the very thing that a lot of products, you can literally name anything out there, that is the moment where the ship starts to sink if they listen to the casual.
Real quick.
The reason why. Okay.
Real quick. Speaking of the ship sinking, to the games that they want, if you look at it, people are more concerned about what the future holds than the actual game that's in front of us. People are more concerned about getting the game with the league or with any of the league solo dolo instead of worrying about the game that's in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
you gotta ask. That's the problem, because you have to once again ask yourself, just because Rocksteady kills them off here, that doesn't mean that Rocksteady can't make a Justice League game. And once again, you would want them to make a Justice League game with all the characters at their disposal versus being limited to what's left. And also, you have to realize that when that ship is sinking, that's 9 times out of 10 because of the hardcore audience is starting to go away from it, which means now all this company has is the casuals. And once the casuals leave because they got bored or found something else new, they ain't got their hardcores no more to prop them up and keep buying stuff. And that's the importance, and that's why I say that gatekeeping needs to be a thing, but you should never bar anybody from coming in. But you should be able to say, like, the casual voice needs to be lessened because they don't know what the product needs because they're new here. So it's not that they can't give any insightful insight. It's not that they can't give good suggestions. But 9 times out of 10, it's something that makes it easier for them. And what I mean by that is that think about what is the easiest thing you can do coming in, or maybe being the person from the outside that has never read the comics, but all you did was watch the movies and a few animated shows. You're going to go with what you know because you fear the unknown. And that is all that is. Because all you know maybe is Batman. All you know is Superman. All you know is the Justice League that you've seen on the animated series.
And some people refuse to pull the trigger on these characters because they care about them so much. And that's, again, that's perfectly understandable. But at a certain point, they ass gotta go. Like, I'm not like,
you gotta make room.
Yeah. Like,
you gotta make room for something new.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to be rude. Like, please, don't get me wrong. Because as I stated earlier in the video, if I didn't, I apologize. But I'm 50-50, right? I want them to live, but at the same time, it would be very exciting to watch most of them, if not all of them, kick the bucket. I'm on both sides.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I'll give another tidbit. I was just like I'm on the Suicide Squad dying now. I was on the I hope Batman is dead in Gotham Knights. And the reason why I was like that is because now you're making a game about these knights. And they're doing what they should be doing, which is pushing forward a new crop of characters. And they need to stand on their own. And the one thing that they didn't do that I thought that they should have done was let them fight their own villains. Because the moment you have them fighting Batman's villains, every casual out there is going to be upset that they're fighting Batman's villains without Batman. And I can, to a certain extent, understand that. But these characters do not get to stand on their own. And you cannot pass the torch forward. You also cannot familiarize a new audience with these characters that are not even new, have existed for generations, and they have not made the big screen because we've been so content with relying on the same superheroes. And that is the difference now versus then. And that's why I say, like, it comes back to quality and prestige. Look at the comic book industry. Is it dying because nobody reads comics? No. There are comics that are doing absolutely well. In fact, look at manga, because that's pretty much what they are. It's Japanese comics. Manga is doing excelling. It is excelling right now. And the reason why superhero comics are not doing well is because the writers for these comics were writing for people who don't even read the comics. So they lost their hardcores. Goes back to what I said earlier. They lost their hardcores, and the casuals got bored quick because they were never really invested to begin with. And now you got a state of where we are now, where the comic book industry is on the verge of going extinct, and all we will have possibly is just the movies and the animated stuff with no new content coming from comic books. That is how that's how much in danger the comic book industry is right now. And so when I say, once again, to come back to, like, I don't want to offend anybody, but that is the importance of prestige. We welcome all newcomers to comic book culture, to pop culture, to everything. But the newcomers have to put in the work to like it for what it is and try to understand what it is versus try to change it so it suits them. That is where everything goes wrong. That is where casuals go wrong. And that is what, when I see these comments, that is what I pick up on, and that is what I notice. If you don't want the Arkhamverse to, not even necessarily if you don't want the Arkhamverse to go, but if you are so against the Arkhamverse to going, or you are so against, like, oh, they wouldn't kill them because they just showed up, that shows me that you have limited experience in the comic book industry. And I know your next caveat, because the next thing that they will rebuttal with us with it's not a comic book, it's a game, and they need to make sales, and they need to do this, and they need to do that. Newsflash, they know that, but eventually a product will get stale. There will come a time where if you overdo something and you oversaturate something or overexpose something, people will stop consuming it because they want something new. And before you ruin your product and get to that point, you want to start having some new stuff to come up with. And that is a reason why pushing the Gotham Knights was a smart idea. Why? Because you had Nightwing gaining large amounts of popularity. That was a good move by them. It didn't work out necessarily popularity wise to the extent that I think that they wanted it to.
No, it did
but
not.
Having the Gotham Knights there was a good move. I think the execution was where it was lost on. Fans have to be willing to accept that. The culture of comic books, and they never have. When I see people say, like, oh, Peter should die in the third game because that's what happens in the comics. Are you referring to the same comic that was non-canon to the actual canon comics? Because if you knew that, you wouldn't say that sentence, oh, well, Peter will die just like in the comics. The comic he died in wasn't canon. So, once again, when you hear things like that, there's certain things that we can pick up on and go, you didn't really read comics for real. And that's okay. No judgment here. But once again, all of that advice and recommendation that you're putting out there for the studios and the people in power to see are ill-advised pieces of advice because you don't have the full context. So you're recommending something without having the full context. And now look at where we are, which is we're in a moment where now Spider-Man, the IP, is under some backlash because of certain decisions that were made in that game.
Oh, the discourse over the past couple of weeks with that game has been nuts. Like
it has been nuts. And that is the thing, is that there's one thing that casuals needed. If anything, if I can give anybody here, if you're a casual and you didn't really dabble in the comic books, I'm gonna give you one strand of advice. And this is not even a Marvel video here. If there's one character that you shall not try that with, it is Peter Parker. Because his fans will not allow for that. Batman are like that too, but to a much lesser there is nobody comparable. They will not let Peter's fans will not let any inaccuracy or disrespect come to him, but only so much. They will not take that. And that is what we're seeing now, the large amount of discourse. And once again, it took Peter for that for people to finally see that. But what's happening with Peter now, whether that's in comic books or the games, has been happening to multiple characters. And the blow up has just been less because you didn't have it happen to a character that a lot of people cared about. And that comes from, once again, when studios take in casual input, that ruins the quality because those casuals don't have the full context. You should never make a product fit the newcomers. The newcomers should have to wipe their foot off at the door, crack their knuckles and say, okay, let's get to learning. That is how you indoctrinate yourself into community.
I will say this: it can appeal because it's the same. It's the same thing with fighting games. It can appeal to newcomers, but it cannot be directly made for put it that way. Exactly. It can't be directly made for newcomers, because if it's directly made for newcomers, then the hardcore fans get fucked over. It can be it can appeal to them, but it cannot be fully for them.
And exactly, and the thing that everybody likes to bring up is that, well, casuals make up the most of any fan base, which they do. But the hardcores is what keeps the product alive, because the casuals will leave, and the hardcores will keep that business afloat. Don't believe me? Look at World of Warcraft. How long has that game lasted? The casuals ain't there. You know why it's still lasting? Because they have more than enough hardcores that will buy everything that comes out to keep them afloat and to keep them making more than a profit. They have their core fan base. They don't need to extend it anymore. You don't even hear about World of Warcraft in the news cycles anymore, but it's still making bank.
Real quick.
And that's nuts.
Real quick. Because what to say? I definitely gotta go pick up people. So we got like a couple minutes left. But no, because like I definitely just saw a comment that I'm not gonna lie breaks a lot of arguments, which is in the sense of y'all want these characters to get a game afterwards, right? You feel like killing these characters is essentially breaking everything that they stand for. See, here's what you gotta realize: that's already happened. Batman and every innocents are being killed. Think about Batman's mindset coming after Arkham Knight. The moment he gets back full control, he's gonna be devastated. Keep in mind, this man already damn near went into retirement once. There's no way in hell he's gonna ever go back to being Batman like this time around without help. Because as we all know, Batman is Batman until the severe mental trauma kicks in, and then not even he is safe from that. The public's these characters at this point are 100% irredeemable, because it seems like the invasion has been going on for a hot minute, right? to the world, their heroes have turned on them and have just been doing a whole bunch of bull. There's no way in hell we could get a game with these characters set in the same universe, because public wise, with characters like Superman and Flash, their public identity plays a big part into how these characters are portrayed. It would be very hard. I mean, you could technically make a redemption game, but there's only so much redemption you can do for subjugating an entire city and millions of people. There's only so much you can do there. Now, oh no, we said something. We gonna say something? We gonna say something?
Oh no, keep going.
Now, I believe these characters, most of them, if not all, should kick the bucket, right? And the reason why I'm doing that, the reason why I'm saying that is because, yes, a Justice League or a Superman game would definitely be great. But here's my thing. I'm not focused about the future. I'm focused about what's in front of me, because not focusing on what's in front of us is how people tend to get sidetracked, this and that, yada yada yada. You got people saying, I'm not gonna buy this game, I'm just gonna wait till they make a Justice League game. If you don't buy this game and support it, what the fuck makes you think you're gonna get a Justice League game after this?
And that's the other thing. Look at Disney. So I'm gonna say, what did they just announce? That they're lessening the amount of projects that they're going to greenlight, which means that we are only going to get limited amount of stuff, which is better because then we'll get more quality. However, we're getting less of that because they're losing money. If they're losing money, they're going to start losing the ability to make a lot of this stuff. If they can't make a lot of this stuff, we no longer can get this stuff. And yes, I am a big proponent. In fact, I will always tell anybody, vote with your wallet. If you see something that you don't like, vote with your wallet. I 100% stand by that. However, you have to be aware of the pros and cons, and you have to be aware of where your industry is and where that company is. And so, for example, with movies, let's take the MCU. With the movies, I support what I like and I don't support what I don't. However, there will come a time where I will buy something because I want to make that company have revenue, to make sure that they're making money, to make sure that they're constantly getting some sort of income coming in. I don't care if that's a collectible. I don't care if it's a video game. I don't care if it's a different movie from the franchise. You can vote with your wallet and still support the company. But just be aware, when your company is in a specific situation, not buying something could possibly tank it, and you might not get anything ever again. So you have to be aware of all different situations. I know everybody likes to talk tough and say like, well, we don't care if it go belly up. They deserve it. You know what I see 90% of the times when stuff does go belly up? Those same people say like, man, I wish this thing was around. I wish they were making games. And somebody like come and like buy the rights to it or something, or things of that nature. I see that all the time. Why do we have to get there? We don't have to get there.
So, to bring this video to a close, it would be perfectly okay if the league lives. It would be perfectly okay if they die. Some of you have some legitimately great arguments out there, and then the rest of you, I'm not gonna lie, your arguments are just kind of, what's the word? Just, it's kind of hard to, casual takes. It is kind of hard to take them seriously because they're heavily based in the area of love and biasy. And I've seen, again, so many people say the same things, but only a few of them have actually been able to give real explanations. Now, I'm 50-50. Sway, I believe, wants the league to just kick the bucket.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all we have to say. This video is like 45 minutes long. I definitely wasn't expecting it to be that long, but it is what it is. Hopefully you all have enjoyed it. Hopefully none of you attack either one of us in the comments, but I know some of you are probably going to, because this is the internet and some people have no filters. Again, that's gonna bring us to the end of the video. Hopefully you all have had a very great and wonderful time here. Let us know down in the comments below, do you want the league to die or do you want them to live, and why? And if you've enjoyed the video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and smack the notifications bell so you won't ever miss out on any of my future Suicide Squad related content. Make sure to check out Sway over on his Twitter. His link will be down in the description below. And we will catch all of you guys and girls in the moonlight. Peace.
Peace.